So I guess I have some explaining to do. I guess I also have somewhat of a social obligation, though I don't like to recognize them, to show that I am coherent. No, I'm not. I suppose insane. I'm not. I have a history of being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I'd argue that I don't have it now because there's nothing post about this. I continue to have issues with my children. My children presently believe, after almost 5 years of my ex-husband having temporary physical custody of them, believe that I don't love them. They believe that they've been abandoned. They believe that they've been rejected by their mother. And this is preferable so that he and his third wife can pretend to have home. I've never felt, I swear to God, I have never felt threatened by that woman. Reason being because I didn't base my parenting style on fear. I didn't base it on anything other than trying to use respect, explanation, and so on. So I was close enough to my children, and I had a loving enough relationship with them that I had a very loving relationship with them, actually. I didn't need to feel threatened by her. She had written me an email saying that I guess she'd love to shower my children with gifts and so on. And I told her, good, you better be good to my kids, because if you're not, we're going to have a problem. I don't view it as a competition. These are children. If my children get screwed up psychologically, that's something that is a failure on part of the adults in their lives. I have a history of PTSD. I also have a history of taking responsibility for my symptoms, which have included nightmares, nausea. I would be of the argument that benzodiazepines aren't particularly useful, reason being that I need the adrenaline taken from here to here. That's my issue. So it makes me nauseous. It makes my heart race, then it makes me nauseous, it makes my hands shake, and that's when I get those symptoms. And quite frankly, you're not going to be hungry, and you're not going to really want to deal with unnecessary BS. And I've never had a high BS tolerance. Ever. 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 That's not PTSD. That's not my history. That's nothing. And by the way, I do have a normal baseline. I do have something to refer back to. I do know what a lot of the other thing is you have a history of that. The point is, I guess, that people with a history of PTSD or people who have survived abuse, it's oftentimes forgotten that they have survived, and there is a reason they've survived. It doesn't mean that I'm a bastard. It doesn't mean that I'm a coward. What it means is that I'm alive, and I don't see why I should have to pay for that. It's not what's happened to me that's bothered me. It's the way I've been treated afterwards. Once people find out it's been used against me, it's been used to sit there and justify absolutely atrocious behavior towards me and accuse me of things that I've never done. I don't have a criminal record. I've never had a record of theft, thievery, shoplifting. That's not something that I do. Interestingly enough, the girls that I hung out with in high school once I moved to Neckham in Stanhope, New Jersey, all of them have been picked up for shoplifting. I'm the only one out of that entire group of people, for the most part, who hasn't been arrested. These are people who have been arrested for possession of drugs, DUIs, stuff like that. I'm not somebody who engaged in that. Did I smoke pot when I was younger? You're damn right I did. But I smoked at home and I relaxed. It's one of the things that I said it should be legalized, and the fact that it's being legalized in this country, I think that other drugs that are responsible for social destruction, familial destruction, community destruction, those should be cracked down on. Marijuana is a buffer between patients and opiates and narcotics. It's not physically addictive, and it's not something that can destroy you in the same manner. That's my opinion on that. So I'm not going to shy away from having someone, I'm like, oh, I didn't help. No, I did. Oh, I did. And it helped take the adrenaline from here to here far better than any benzodiazepine ever has. And benzodiazepine numbs you out. And that's probably, in my opinion, why people who are in CBT, therapy, they're not necessarily responsive, or maybe they plateau, especially if they're on Xanax or something like that, because they're numb. They're numb. You have to be able to feel it. It's not pretty. It's messy. It doesn't come in a neat little package, and it takes time. And that's why people don't tend to like that. Because, quite frankly, what happened to me wasn't nice. It wasn't neat. It was messy, it was ugly, and I dealt with it. And I think that that's oftentimes overlooked. And instead, I've had to defend every opinion and feeling that I've had for the most part around people who would use that as a means of, I guess, subjugating me, really is the only way I know how to put it. And that's not my PTSD, because the people from my past, I don't even have that. I wouldn't even argue that I have that. I have a problem with it, and I'll get into that. But the people from my past aren't there right in that moment disrespecting me. I have the right to say, I don't like the way you're treating me. I'm not cursing people out. I'm not getting in their face. I don't have a history of getting into fistfights as an adult. I don't see the need to sit there and resort to violence unless it's for self-defense or defense of another person. That's exactly how I feel. But because of my history, because I've been to therapy, it's very easily believed that I'm some type of animal or monster. I don't know what love is, all this other stuff. And because I've lost everything, I figure this is a good time for me to utilize whatever blessings, skills I have to speak out for what I think and what I believe in. Interestingly enough, a lot of the people that pull this garbage with me are ones who have had things happen to them that never had help. And I think that's worth saying too. Women like me tend to be referred to as damaged goods and stuff like that. That's not very nice, first of all. And second of all, I would think that if anybody understands what it's like to be treated like garbage, it would be me. And I'm not inclined to do that to other people. I want to be able to be nice to people. So, truly, if I've been an asshole to somebody, it's because they have consistently and regularly crossed my boundaries with me after I've asserted them, and these are reasonable boundaries. These aren't boundaries like, oh, kiss my ass. No, it's how about you don't get in my face? How about if you have something to say? It's not like, oh, for example, recently I had somebody get in my face because I tether my dog outside on a 15-foot lead. I have 2 holes in my fence and roads, and this dog will leave. She will leave, and I love her. I don't want her to get hurt or hit by a car. I don't want her to suffer a crush injury. And somebody got in my face over a lie. The reason I bring that up isn't because I want to harp on it, because it's common. It's common. People commonly try to bait me into fights. They commonly try to bait me into being incapable or whatever the case may be, or yelling at them or whatever it may be. And they'll push and push and push. And these are people that'll snatch papers out in front of you and stuff like that. If I didn't have self-control, if I were irrational, if I were somebody who were an asshole because I survived abuse, I would have a criminal record by now with how I've been treated here. At 36 years old, I would have a criminal record because I've had the shit kicked out of me here psychologically, socially, and all this other stuff simply for being alive. And that is why I say words like eugenics. Because if people think about it, the minute they think about a woman who has been abused in the past and who's overcome it, who's done what they need to do, they immediately, they view them as a lesser person. Do these people think about how hard you have to work? How much of an interest in being healthy you have to have in order to go through this shit in the first place? Because the easy thing to do is to ignore it, pretend it didn't happen, and then just be fucked up. Excuse my language, but that's the only way to put it. And a lot of the people I've run into problems with that cause problems, that cause a lot of drama, that cause all this shit, that cause a lot of resource waste in terms of calling, these are people that haven't had help. Poker money. Part of why I'm writing is because now, just given the amount of loss that I've taken, and the reason I say secret hearings, when you file a motion and you use the wrong address, when you have filed motions in the past or you have mailed me things in the past to sit there and, with the court, and you've used the right address, and this was a house that you were supposed to live in that was purchased while we were still married, I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what? You're trying to deceive the court and me. When I write the court and say, this guy didn't use the right address, I don't even know what this is based on. I didn't find out I had an obligation until I was $3,500 in debt. I'll get to the child support thing in a minute. I'm not arguing that I shouldn't pay child support either. That's a key component either. I'm not asking for anything that's unreasonable. I'm asking for justice. When you get to this point, you have to speak. So that's what I'm going to endeavor to do, in part. I've had a secret hearing. I wrote the court. And they tell me, you don't have the right to see what's been used for this calculation. I have $3,500 in debt by the time I find out about this. And then I haven't written anything down because I want to speak from the heart. I want to be sincere and just genuine. So I have a few tangents I might go on, and you know what? It is what it is because it's stressful. How would it not be? I write the court. I ask them for, what did he submit? He didn't even use the right address. Now I have $3,500 in debt. I'd like to have a reval done, see about the amount. I'm not arguing that I shouldn't pay child support. What I am arguing is the amount. I don't know why I've been ordered to pay so much more than in terms of percentage. The way it worked out in the percentage was about 37% of my salary versus 22% of his. Here's another kicker, is I was married for 5 years, okay? And in that time, I was a housewife. That's what I did. I stayed home. I enjoyed being a housewife, taking care of my family. I was a homemaker. I didn't expect Coach bags. I clipped coupons. I used the sales flyer, and I did my best. My grandparents also helped a lot. My ex-husband made $15 an hour as a paid EMT for the city of Paterson. He was not supporting poor people on that amount in Paterson, New Jersey, where the rents tend to be market rate. He is not doing it. My grandparents helped a lot. And the kind of wife that I was, is I went to them and I asked them, I said, I stay home. He's the breadwinner. He's my husband. I don't anticipate getting divorced. He was a jerk and went through some hard times. I was hopeful that I wouldn't have to break up my family. I happen to take marriage seriously. It's one of the reasons I'm not remarried, surprisingly. My grandparents put down $6,000 in cash. They did a cashier's check to pay for him to attend a paramedic program at St. Vincent's Medical Hospital in Manhattan, New York. For all the things he said about me, and I'm going to go into some maybe less tasteful subjects because it's part of marriage, right? He never complained that I denied him sex in the divorce complaint. He never complained or accused me of infidelity. He's accused me of a lot of terrible things. But you know what's funny is if you're going to sit there and accuse somebody of emotional instability, where the judge tells you to stop, and being at least, this guy, I'm getting this. Usually infidelity goes along with that, particularly when you're attending a paramedic program. It's a year-long program. I'm home with the kids. He gets up in the morning, he's home for 2 15-minute blocks of time a day, which means that he gets up in the morning, he puts on a uniform that I've ironed. I wasn't a bitch wife, I was a good wife, thank you very much. Puts on a uniform I ironed for him, goes to work, comes back, dinner is on the table at 4:30, thank you very much, because there wasn't a lot of time for him to eat. Came home, took off his boots, got changed, went to class. Turns out he was getting out of class maximum, maybe 8 o'clock at night. He wasn't coming home until midnight. My daughter had been diagnosed with autism and lead poisoning within a 3-week time period in April of that year. I handled that on my own. Here's another thing. Somebody who is so concerning to this guy. Please explain to me why you leave your wife then home alone with 2 children, ages 3 and 5, one of whom has just been diagnosed with autism, PDD, NOS, pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, with lead poisoning at a level of 20. Why do you leave her home alone while she's homeschooling your son for preschool? And not one family member, not one friend, nobody stops by to check up on me, calls me to see if I need relief, if I need a break, anything like that. I handled that shit 100% on my own for that year. I didn't cheat. No man came into my house. Thank you very much. If my husband wasn't home, no man came into my house. That's another reason that an infidelity charge never would have stuck. Because that's not how I rolled as a wife. And I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Nobody called me to ask me if I needed anything. Nobody called to check on the kids. Nobody called anything. If you're really concerned about somebody, you don't leave them alone the entire day with major changes. A move, you've started school, now you're not home at all. I'm homeschooling a 5-year-old for preschool. My daughter's diagnosed with autism. Now I have to learn ABA. Now I have to study autism. Now I have to figure out what's going on with this. Why was I left alone this entire time? Not one of his whole big family. 10 brothers and sisters. Nobody called me to see if I was okay. Nobody called me to see if I needed help, how the kids were, or nothing. And I'm saying that over and over and over again because that should make a point. After we separated, oh no, excuse me, I wasn't homeschooling my son for preschool. He was in Catholic kindergarten at that point. I beg your pardon. He was in Catholic kindergarten at that point. I homeschooled him for preschool the year prior. I let him finish the school year. I moved to Stanhope, New Jersey, so I can be around my friends and my family. Well, I thought were my friends. Oh, I've moved 30 miles away. Please explain to me why somebody who's so concerned, oh, I'm so terrible. Because of PTSD, I'm unstable, I'm irrational, I'm a bitch, I'm a terrible person. Oh, you just cannot deal with me. Please explain to me why somebody, please show me one police officer. I'm going to actually call out to police officers. I don't hate all of you, actually. I'm not anti-cop, I'm anti-asshole. I promise. I'm going to ask the police officers of my country to please tell me if, as fathers, I'm going to forget the women, ladies, I don't mean any disrespect, or even the women, fine. Please explain to me who takes that and says, I moved 30 miles away, and apparently I'm so terrible, I'm so, ooh. But he moves down the shore, 4 hours away, without traffic. Toll roads, everything. You're looking at, with traffic, maybe even 5 or 6 hours if there's rush hour. Please tell me what kind of concerned man who's complaining about his wife that, oh, she was perfectly fine during the marriage. Everything is so wonderful, fine. You can leave her alone all day long while you're out drinking and screwing around with your mistress. And your daughter's just been diagnosed and all this other stuff, right? But it's not that concerning. It's to where you moved 4 hours away. You moved down the shore. You moved to Tom's River. Would somebody please tell me what concerned parent, somebody who's legit concerned about somebody, moves that far away? Because now what's your response time? And his nearest family member was 30 miles away in Patterson, his mother who didn't drive. So I would like somebody to explain to me, please, how that works, because I call it bullshit. That's what I call it. That's exactly what I call it. I call it bullshit. When I threw him out of the house, I knew where he was going. I'm not stupid. Who's going to sit there and choose to sleep on their mother's couch when they have a mistress's bed? I'm not stupid. But here's my deal, okay? I'm not jealous. I know what kind of woman I am. I haven't remarried not because I'm hung up on this guy. How full of himself does he need to be? And this is flown in court. This is why I'm bringing these things up, because these have all the things that I'm saying have flown in court without evidence. And now I have a problem. I was in the kitchen, and now this bastard and his frickin' friends dragged me out of the kitchen by my hair. Look at my face. I cook, I bake. I have a sewing machine. I crochet. I do a bunch of shit, and I'm happy doing it. I was in the kitchen. These bastards dragged me out of it by my hair and then beat me over the head. Not being exaggerated. I'm not exaggerating there. Why? Why? Because I divorced an abusive man. Because I stood up. I knew where he was going to go. I was done. I was married for 5 years. I was the one who came from money. I was the one who sat there. My grandparents, he had cars, cell phones, all this shit because of my grandparents. And guess what? We have the receipts. I have the receipt for St. Vincent's Medical Center as well for $6,000 cash. If that's not a wife who loves her husband, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. But apparently I'm such a terrible person. What was happening was I was thrown out of trucks. I was thrown out of a Ford Explorer while it was moving because my ex-husband was mad that I had spoken to another man at a bar. I was thrown into a wall in front of my children. A police officer in Patterson handed me a tissue and told me to clean myself up. Can you see my nose? Yeah, I won't even... Let me just try to lift it so I'm not... I don't want to, skew it, but I wanted to show it. That's got x-rays to back it up. Okay? I don't have a violent record. I don't have a history. My ex-husband, I don't have a history of being in court We're dealing with police outside of speeding tickets. No, I'm not going to lie about that. Look, I had the need for speed. Oh yes indeed. Absolutely, I have a problem with this. I get behind the wheel. It feels like it should be, I just put my foot on the gas, and I always end up doing 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, most of the time, and I don't realize it because that to me feels like what the speed limit should be. I'm aware of this. So when you pull me over for a speeding ticket, do you have any idea why I pulled you over? Haha, I have an idea. You know what I'm not going to do? Argue with you. Why? Why should I argue with you and ruin your day and mine? I would like to get on with my day driving away, cursing creatively if I'm alone about the freaking money now I have to pay and the up insurance. And I'm sure you'd like to go on and be like, aha, I got an asshole speeding. Truly, I don't have a history of fighting cops, anything like this. My history is speeding tickets. The only time I've been to court before that was like, hi, prosecutor, yes. Anything we can do about this, maybe? Yeah, you pay court costs. No. That's fine. Fair enough. I don't argue over this shit. I don't argue over this shit. You know why? Because I know this. But this is the extent of my record. I don't have a history of pulling people into court. I don't have a history of hitting dudes. I might have slapped somebody once or twice for being disrespectful when I was younger, about 18. I will defend myself. If I can, I'll help defend somebody else. But I'm not going to sit there and look for a fight. My record backs this up. My record reinforces this. I don't have a history of pulling ex-boyfriends into court. My ex-husband is the only dude I've ever had a restraining order against. My ex-husband is the only dude or the only reason I've ever had to deal with the police. It's not my deal. I don't want these problems. I like relaxing. I don't like bullshit. This is why I used to have mostly male friends and not female friends, because I don't like the catty shit and I don't want to be bothered. I'm not going to lie. I know that you're going to piss people off, fine. But I like to relax. Now I have a situation where I've had secret evidence. I still have no idea. I have more than $10,000 worth of the only kind of debt in this country, one of the only kinds of debt in this country that you can be in prison for. It can rise to the level of a felony, and I still have no idea what it's even based on. I don't even know. And that's on U.S. soil. My children I can't even feed myself. I've taken home $0 paychecks. I don't have a degree. I don't have a car. I do speak Russian. You don't study Russian for a year and then go, oh, now I'm a translator. I mean, I can do low-level stuff. But I mean, it's not something that I can use in a high-level capacity just yet. And I think that it's reasonable. I'm in North Carolina with a GED. Now, I've been an analyst. I've been a project coordinator. I've taken initiative to study things myself. I didn't always have the opportunity to access education, but I did have access to a library. When the internet came out, I had access to that. And I used it. And the evidence of that is having had a GED and being able to go to Russia and teach English in a Russian state high school to trilots and help prepare them for a first certificate of English exam. It's not that I'm unwilling, but I need people to stop kicking me in the teeth. I can prove what I'm saying. It's not that I'm sitting here trying to be difficult. I don't challenge things because I enjoy challenging things. I don't do that because I need to be on. I'm not somebody who needs that. What I do is, the way I work pretty much is you lock me in an effing closet, you tell me what you need, you tell me when you need it by, and you leave me the hell alone. And then usually I come to you before the deadline. If you leave me the hell alone. I'm not going to get into other stuff, but in terms of the First Amendment, in terms of police, in terms of the justice system, in terms of my ex-husband, it's corrupted. Corruption is rampant, at least in New Jersey. Denying people, like expecting this implication that you're supposed to be silent in the face of abuse is absolutely unacceptable, and I refuse to have anything else stolen from me. My children call someone else mom while I sit here with a court order that I can do nothing with. I have joint legal custody. I was a good mom. My children were happy with me. In fact, I have all their school pictures and they're smiling in all of them. I was poor, but I worked my ass off. My daughter was mainstreamed without an aid, 98% general education time, reading a grade level ahead. That's not because you sit on your ass. Now, granted, I didn't have coach bags and stuff like that to show for it, but I had something far more valuable, and that was a child with autism making progress. She is now fully self-contained with the exception of things like lunch and homeroom. They're telling me she has a low IQ, which is absolute horseshit. And they're telling she's not even reading. She hasn't read on grade level for the last 4 years, and that's the stuff that I get, because I only get that. I get dribs and drabs of things, so it's not like they don't have my address either. I'm not standing up because I'm trying to be an asshole. But the issue is, if you're going to sit there and also go after my First Amendment right, we're going to have some problems, and I'm going to start speaking. Now, I'm going to speak with what pertains to me. I'm going to discuss what pertains to me. I'm not going to engage in hearsay. I'm going to discuss what applies to my situation and what I've been through here. Excuse me. If it helps somebody else to understand they're not alone, great, I hope. If it helps lend credence to other people and what they're saying happens, good. Use it. Because this is bullshit. What's happening to people here is bullshit. This notion that you can't have an opinion or feelings unless you're qualified. Well, then, please explain to me what level of income I need to have in order to have an opinion. Please explain to me what level of education I need to have in order to have an opinion about the life I'm expected to live, particularly when it's by court order. Because I'm on food stamps, and that's never going to change until this court order changes. I have been court ordered into destitution. I can't afford access to medical care. I can't afford access to the justice system, which is now $50. They don't respect the self-support reserve of my checks. I've taken home $0 checks. In fact, I was working 40 hours a week, and I was taking home about $100 for 40 hours of full-time work a week. What do I do with that? That's a death sentence. That's exactly what it is a death sentence. I can't afford to feed myself. I can't afford to access medical care. I can't afford to pay any of my bills unless the state pays them for me. So I would also like to ask why the taxpayers should have to pay for the corruption of the state of New Jersey. Because in order for me to survive with this court order, what it means is that the taxpayers have to pay my bills. I need food stamps. I have $53 in food stamps a month. The alternative is working 80 hours a week just to put food on my table and basic expenses. How is that not third world? My ex-husband right now pays on a $250,000 home and has a boat. That's what I'm court ordered into destitution for. He was dishonorably discharged from the United States Marine Corps basic training on the basis of character and psychological unfitness. I cannot prove, I have to say, I do not have the paperwork that stands behind the psychological unfitness. I can say, however, that in in 2005, he was on temporary disability for depression himself. So when he sits there and attacks me for having sought therapy for mental health care, for being irresponsible, I'm confused. Now I have his DD-214. I wrote the USAA in Fort Worth, Texas. I believe it's Fort Worth, Texas. I wrote the headquarters there. I mailed them a copy of his DD-214. I filed a complaint with the FBI. The FBI wrote me back and said there's no problem with this. My complaint was for abuse of color of law. The technicality in that law is it doesn't apply to white people. Now, how about technicality that if you want to test my DNA, I can actually prove I'm 3% Asian and I'm 3% Jewish. It doesn't matter, though. I'm not going to argue that. You know why? Because government abuse can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter who you are. It can happen to anybody. And the fact that it happens to anybody at all, regardless of the color of their skin, is what's unacceptable. I don't care if black people feel this can't happen to me. I don't care if white people feel it can't happen to me. I don't care if who doesn't feel this can happen to me. It can happen to anybody. And it does happen to people here of various races and all different kinds of people it happens to here. And to me, that's what's important. The fact that it happens to Americans at all is what's important. So I'm going to speak. The people who have a problem with it have something to hide. And the only thing I have to say is that I have a lot of written statements. The personal items that I've left behind when people have stabbed me in the back have been left behind for the sake of documentation. And I think it's appropriate now that I say that. It wasn't easy to leave those things behind, but they needed to be left behind because I only have mental space. What happens to people like me who have survived abuse is unacceptable and it's atrocious. The way I've been treated by my own justice system and the police who are supposed to protect me is atrocious. The way I live now, knowing that the law doesn't apply to me, protection of the law doesn't apply to me, but I'm accountable for every single thing that I do, and no one is accountable for what they do to me. That is the life I live here. I don't have protection of the Constitution. My due process rights have already been taken from me. My Fourth Amendment rights have already been violated. I'll get into that, and I have been. My ex-husband has stalked me. He has had friends impersonate an officer of the court. He has, from what I understand, my son tells me his father was a Marine. So that's impersonation of an armed services member, and that's actually a federal statute as well, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the character of somebody who's worth bending the Constitution and the law for. That's the type of person who's worth my rights and my children's rights, because what's happening is irreparable psychological harm. That's what's happening. And my goal is, if I can't protect myself and my family from this, then I'm going to put on the First Amendment like a frickin' evening gown. I'm going to glue that bitch to me, and I'm going to parade it around. And it's not going to be pretty, and I'm aware that, if you curse, it's not as, you know what? I'm going to curse. I'm going to speak freely, and I'm going to say what I have to say. And anybody who has a problem with that shouldn't have treated me like garbage and dehumanized me and vilified me. Normally, I ignore people. I believe in that. But when your actions begin to trespass into my life and my family and my ability to have a normal life, then we have a problem. And the difference is that I don't need anything other than a pen because I have the truth. I have no desire in my heart to be violent. That's not who I am. But I have no intention of allowing people to destroy my life without speaking. The Constitution and the First Amendment and the law should apply to everybody. It should protect everybody, and if it doesn't, then I think there's a bit of a problem. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm coming from. And now that I've explained myself, I'm going to continue to use my page as an open letter to my society and to my government, more specifically the police and the Justice Department. I'm not anti-police, I'm anti-asshole. And there is a difference. And to sit there and say that about police, do you think it's fun for me to say that about a police officer? Do you think that brings me joy? Do you think that helps me sleep at night? To say that about somebody who's supposed to protect me, who has the ability to do whatever they want without consequence. It's not fun. It's fucking terrifying. And now I have an ex-husband who's friends with police, who sat there with reports and all this other stuff. And that is the life I've gotten to live over the last 10 years. And still, I don't go around hurting innocent people. I don't go around hurting people, period. I keep to myself. And if I see that people are assholes, I cut them out of my life. I'm the one who's supposed to have all of the excuses to be a screw-up and to be an asshole. So with all due respect, what's yours? Because I don't use them. And my life, my family, has been torn apart and destroyed for the sake of somebody who can't be bothered to respect the rights of another American citizen. He was such a Marine. No one is taking my voice on top of what they've already stolen. It's mine. I hope people understand where I'm coming from. Good night and good luck.